nga clinical note sa iyong book, may nga da asteriognosis. So asteriognosis nga is diri naka-identify na mga objects, shapes, labi na ko na close iti mata, yung papatouch mo iya kamot. So usa ito nga problem animo 5 and 7, your asteriognosis. Di maka-identify, for example, key. Mafe-feel na niya na may dahiya. May da ka kinakaptan. Naka-feel yan pain, touch, pressure, or mga hemi-anesthesia, contralaterally. Pero diri yan naka-interpret kung ano talaga ito iya. Because guba niya sensory association area or your somatosensory association cortex. Okay, nakuha ba niyo? Usa itong example la your asteriognosis. Ano balotit ko? Nakabati na ka mo barognosis? Barognosis. What is barognosis?
Sir, kun kun bagat imuging kakaptan or like weightan imo.
Yun, di ba? So, usa gihapon is your weight. Yakan pa man imo yakan weight, di ba? Barognosis is pag able to identify an imo weight. Kung di rin naka-identify, among tinatawag abarognose siya. Di ba? So, di rin na naka-identify gihapon weight. Same gihapon ito, yan. Nagkakamay dirang problem in your sensory association area or your somatosensory association nga cortex niyo. Okay, naintindihan? Sige, next. Continue.
Next, we have the temporal lobe. Nga liwat duha ka sulcus and present, the superior temporal sulcus and an inferior temporal sulcus. So, above the superior temporal sulcus kay an aton primary auditory cortex. This is for the perception of sound or conscious awareness of our sounds through pitch, frequency, and location of sounds. So, nga diha anterior part iti na-recognize nga frequency kay mga low frequency sounds. Tapos sa posterior part naman kay mga high frequency. Unilateral lesion hindi nga area kay naka-result kay partial deafness duha nga ears pero mas greater tiya loss sa contralateral nga ear. Next, we have the secondary auditory area or animo association cortex just beneath it. This one. So, same function iti mga association cortex, may hiyat na interpret, hiyat na analyze, hiyat na recognize its sound. Next is another language area natin, language functioning area, kaya ang Wernicke's area. Kwan hiya for comprehension and understanding of language, written man or verbal. Connected diha Broca area by arcuate fascicule. So, niyan nagdi-discuss ko ito kung paano hiya na kuan na relay Broca's area. So, in some cases, kung hindi mo temporal lobe, for example, maigo or like magkadakahin trauma, hay mo temporal head, this area might get damaged. Nganit patient, pwede hiya manifestin condition called the receptive aphasia. So kanina, Broca's area, anya ka ni sir, kaya imo mo na to sir. Ano sa nga
expressive aphasia.
Kuren kapag express. Didi Wernicke's area kay receptive aphasia. So diya speech normal hiya grammatically pero waray sense. Diri maramit tawo nga waray sense itiya gininakan. So, may receptive aphasia. Next is the primary olfactory cortex, just below the inferior temporal sulcus. Let's talk about this kay balay niya. Ato ya deep within the lobe kasi niya. So, ato next kay visual.
Sige, wait lang. Hindi kita temporal, importante. Regarding an imo Wernicke's. So, hindi nga Wernicke's kasi, di ba nayakan na kanina, your receptive aphasia. Meaning to say, diri yan nakaka-comprehend, di yan nakaintindi. So, for example, mapakiyan na ka, sir, anon imo name? So, bangin, actually, nakaya ka niya because able to express siya. Meaning to say, fluent aphasia kasi gyapon nagtawag ito yung Wernicke's aphasia. So, di rely niya naka-comprehend. For example, may ka, sir, ano tayo mga ran? So, patients with Wernicke's aphasia is di rito yan naka-intindi. May akantiya, 27. Ba, hindi tigba to na mo is iba. Because di yan naka-comprehend. So, hayin ba usually iti lesion? So, iti lesion is in the posterior temporal gyrus. Okay? In the posterior temporal gyrus. Or iba na yakan liwat, the superior portion posterior temporal gyrus. Iningin ko ako ini nga iti lesion ngadto Sullivan niyo nga book. Sullivan adto ti yung mga aphasias ito niyo. Sige, continue.
Occipital naman kita, occipital lobe. So, already din nakita na niya mga fissures, pero anya gyrus nga na-form kay precuneus nga nanimocuneus. Nga diha cuneus, but imo cortex dito imo areas. We have the visual association area, nga primary visual association of primary visual cortex. Ang primary visual cortex for awareness of vision, itiya stimuli via the optic nerve. So, adila mahatag lakon na overviewhan visual pathway maton ang receptors and optic nerve retina. They will leave the eyeballs and half of these tracts will cross optic chiasm, tapos ma-synapse lateral geniculate bodies, tapos mga dinahiya imo primary visual cortex. Yan, ma-further in-depth discussion pa ito. So, ano mo naman, visual association cortex, nakaka-analyze yan visual stimulus through colors, angles, shape, movement, and object. Haimo didi, visual association cortex, may nakita-kita na tawag nga occipital eye field. Kanina may nakita frontal eye field, tas nga di may nakita occipital eye field. Stimulation ni nga area kay nakaka-produce siya conjugate deviation of the eyes. Itiya function kay associated with movements of the eye when it's following an object. So in contrast nga diha nimo frontal eye fields, frontal eye fields more like involuntary hiya ba, like kung nakita ka himo surroundings na movement imo eyes from left to right, so imo ito frontal eye fields. Nga di occipital kay hiya intentional. Kung for example may dakain susubdan nga object or lapis in front ha imo, imo ito occipital eye field. Hiya scanning movements, tapos independent yang nga visual stimuli. So aside from the lobes that I've mentioned, may dagihapon other cortical areas sa aton brain. Amoy nakiniyakan nga fifth nga lobe. Kay niya diri ko diya consider, pero tatawag ya nga lobe. So ada ito ya, kung ikakat nato na nato lateral fissure didi, amo ito makikita ni tiya. Deep ito hiya imo brain. Thus this is known for planning, coordinating articulatory movements necessary for speech. Tapos this is also known for visceral sensations like animo GI tract, nimo heart, and lungs. Adin ibang nga areas, the vestibular cortex, responsible for sensations of the face and vestibular sense. And aton vestibular sense, we have an dynamic equilibrium, rotational acceleration, nga nimo static linear acceleration. Tapos adi nga gustatory cortex. When we say gustatory, taste, gustation. So it is involved in taste. So adi hiya proponent hit Brodmann area. German anatomist Kirbian Brodmann, he made his mark in neuroanatomy by mapping different areas of the brain. So may nakita total nga 52 areas. Tapos each area is correlated, each various cortical functions. So ana ko laging included di ang mga may important nga functions, mga mean talaga. Like area 4, ani mo primary motor cortex, ani mo area 6, premotor cortex. Tapos ani mo frontal eye fields, area 9 to 12 ani mo prefrontal cortex. Tapos ani mo areas 44 to 45 kay Broca's area. Next, parietal lobe, ito 312. Dirito di ba sir, dirito pwede 1, 2, 3, kailangan talaga tiya 3, 1, 2. So, ito. Tapos, area 5, animo somatosensory association cortex, nga area 7, animo posterior parietal association area. Temporal lobe naman, area 22, kay animo Wernicke's area 34, kay animo primary olfactory cortex, nga 41 to 42, primary auditory cortex. Occipital lobe, area 17, animo primary visual cortex, area 18, secondary, tapos area 19, animo associative cortex. So, din full nga map. Included na ito gyrus. Additional. Animo 41 to 42, amon primary auditory cortex, and 43, gustatory cortex, ngan and 52 para insular area. Kung kailangan kasi ito ha, igkakatiya para makita niya medial ng deep. So, adin bagat summarization, wala ini habok pero kumuha la ka iba nga source, aniya kuan different nga areas aniya function tas the location. So, let's talk about brain dominance. And kuan ko no during examination, nakitaan nga ang left hemisphere nga right hemisphere same lahera or identical tera cortical gyri nera fissures tas nera nervous pathway pero nakita nera nga mas na-perform an dominant ka hemisphere kaysa han non-dominant iti mo handedness perception of language ngan speech functional area nga dayon ako control hay mo dominant hemisphere whereas ani mo spatial perception recognition and faces ngan music adayan na interpret ha non-dominant hemisphere. So, according to researches, animo speech area kuan ha adult larger hiya ha left ngan ha left kaysa ha right. Whereas two hemispheres of a newborn are believed to have equal capabilities. Amo ito, during childhood, ito sa nga hemisphere na slowly develop hiya or like na slowly dominate hiya kaysa han usa only after the first decade nagiging fixed mo dominance. This explains why ito sa nga 5-year-old nga bata nga may damage ha dominant hemisphere, pwede pa hiya maka-learn to become left-handed ngan makayakan. Whereas this is almost impossible ha mga adults. So, moving on, we have the internal structures of our cerebral hemisphere. First is our basal nuclei. That's all.
nuclei is applied to a collection of masses of gray matter situated within each cerebral hemisphere, namely the corpus
Wait
striatum.
la. Hindi nagiyakan na.
Idaso, sir.
Pag-i-icon pa daw, di rin nababatian. Pag-i-rani pa
Hello?
rin.
May mute ko lang
Sir.
taksaw.
Okay, sige.
Okay, again, basal nuclei is a collection of gray masses of a collection of masses of gray matter situated within each cerebral hemisphere. And then um it an mga cerebral hemisphere asya ni an corpus striatum, amygdaloid, tapos claustrum. First is corpus striatum. The next up. Hello.
Hindi rin nababatian. Wait la. So, nga diha book, may daman ito book niyo. Kanan basal ganglia niyo. Aniya mga anatomic structures. Yung may nakatab-tab ito. Pakiko na ko. Pakisurat ako ito ya. And for example, caudate and putamen, nagiging striatum, globus pallidus, putamen, lentiform nucleus, so on and so forth. Pakilista ko. Pakinota ko. Thank you. Sige, continue.
Corpus striatum is situated lateral to the thalamus. And then it is almost completely divided by a band of nerve fibers and called internal capsule. Tapos it is divided into quadrate nucleus and lentiform nucleus. Quadrate nucleus is a large C-shaped mass of gray matter that is closely related to the lateral ventricle. It helps control high-level functioning sugad hit planning, movement, emotion, tapos it includes learning. Tapos ang lentiform naman comprised of the putamen and globus pallidus. It carries of complex functions related to the movement, cognition, and emotion. Sugad it fear and aggression. And next, amygdaloid nucleus. It is situated in the temporal lobe close to uncus. Tapos, it is considered of the part of limbic system. It produces autonomic components of emotion. Example, changes in heart rate, blood pressure, and respiration. And then let's go to claustrum. It is a thin sheet of gray matter that is separated from the lateral surface of the lentiform nucleus by the external capsule. Nasa ring habok, its function kuno hitclustrum is unknown pa. And then, kadtoliwat kita ha, ah, fibers, asya na, fibers of nerve, tapos kan Leila nini.
Haaton brain, may nakita different fiber connections or nerve fibers nga na-communicate hit iba'y mga information para ma-relay niya different parts of our brain. So, it can be divided into three. We have the association fibers, the commissural fibers, and projection fibers. Iti mo association fibers, itiyagin ko connect kay adalaha usang hemisphere. So, diri na cross. It na cross kaya imo commissural fibers. It connects an area in one hemisphere with an area in the opposite hemisphere. Tas an projection fibers nimo, it connects it connects the cortex to other parts of the CNS. So, ganun nimo spinal cord.
So, wait lang. Sige, didiscuss mo man. Okay. Sige, continue.
So, first naton association fibers. It is divided into two. Animo short association fibers nga nanimo long association fibers. So, animo short association fibers kaya may ni nga nga bagat napa U-shape hiya. It consists of arcuate fibers tapos hiya it na connect hit neighboring nga gyri. For example, nga di primary motor cortex it na kuan hito na connect ha iya ha association cortex kaya imo short association fibers. Next is your long association fibers. May dahiya superior longitudinal fasciculus, the inferior longitudinal fasciculus, the uncinate fasciculus, and cingulum ngan fronto-occipital fasciculus. Ano mo superior longitudinal fasciculus amoy niya? This one. Amot it largest bundle. Naran hiya from the anterior part of your frontal lobe pakadiha occipital ngan temporal. Adiman. Kadiha anterior pakadiha occipital tapos na kadilotia temporal. It largest bundle of nerve fibers. Next is your inferior longitudinal fasciculus. It connects your temporal lobe occipital lobe. Makaditiya. Tapos mo uncinate fasciculus, adiman, amutiat na connect gihapan yung first motor speech area and the gyri on the inferior surface of frontal lobe to the temporal lobe. So, this one. Mo cingulum, so imo cingulate gyrus, imo didi, tapos adin imo corpus callosum. In between hiton, mo cingulum. Cingulum, hiyat na connect hit frontal and parietal lobes with parahippocampal gyrus to occipital and temporal lobes. Itiya narrative from didi. Tapos tika diha ubos. So, bagat nga diha, naka-cover niya from the frontal, tika diha temporal, napalibot niya almost. Tas next is your fronto-occipital. Fronto-occipital, adilot yan naran. Superior kasi, adihiya. Fronto-occipital, itiyagin ko connect gihapon, your frontal lobe, temporal nga niti mo occipital. Adiya ubos. So, next is your commissural fibers. Nimo commissural fibers, we have a structure called the corpus callosum. Very known in niya. Tas may dahiya different parts. We have the anposterior end, and thickest part, we have the splenium. Tas anterior ito, kaya niya truncus. Tapos, geno. Geno means ni, bagaman niya yung tuhod. So, that's what you call the geno. Tapos, mo rostrum na narrowing part. So, and fibers nga nago from your dito to your frontal lobe, may a special name called your minor or frontal forceps. Tapos, mo gihapon fibers that go backward hay mo occipital lobe kay tawag major or occipital forceps. When the fibers have crossed over to the other side, na-radiate hiya to different parts, tas na-form an imo radiation of corpus callosum. So, amoy naton truncus, makikita naton kung sugarin yung section, amoy naton truncus. Tapos, below hito na naton septum pellucidum. Then, we have the fornix. Kung i-zoom naton, or like isa-separate lang naton niya nga part, amoy kaya tsura. Tapos, may different parts gihapon. We have the crus of fornix, body of fornix ngan, column of fornix. Tapos inin hiya. This is the commissure of fornix. Itiya function kay hiyat na connect hit left side and fornix to the right side of fornix. Tiya ito kay it connects the hippocampus kung hain na take place an imo new memory nga nimo learning para to other components of the limbic system like kanimo mammillary bodies. So next we have the anterior commissure inin nga gutiay tapos posterior commissure ngan habenular commissure. Ani mo anterior commissural fibers, small bundle of white matter fibers that connects two hemisphere together that crosses the midline called terminal lamina terminalis. Ani mo lamina terminalis amoy niya this part. Next, your posterior commissure, it connects the language processing centers of both cerebral hemispheres. So, ano mo language processing centers kay ano mo Broca's area nga nan imo Wernicke's area. Iyanit na connect nga duha. Tapos ano imo naman, lastly, your habenular commissure. Ano mo habenular commissure, ano bagat situated here in front of your pineal gland that connects the habenular nuclei on both sides of the diencephalon. So next is your projection fibers. These
Wait
are
last, may ako lagad. May ako igad eh. Regarding your commissural fibers, di ba, na kan pumunta kanina, na kan lang ha? Hiyat na connect from your left to right, di ba? Specifically, ani mo, kung nagkakami damage, ani mo commissural fiber, or I mean, ani mo, specifically, ani mo corpus callosum, is pwede yan magkamay din problems with bimanual task. Ano ba bimanual task? For example, ang patient, mayakan ka, sir, pag i-carry daw ini nga tray, or i-carry ini nga object, dirito ini nga makakaya, i-carry, gamit niya doon nga kamot. For example, mayakan ka, sir, gamitin spoon and fork, pagkaon. Dirito yung makakahimo because may problem hiya by manual task. Same gyapon pag open it kan. Di ba? Once nag-open it kan, kakaptan niya, for example, niya left hand an object, then gamit ano sa liwat, i-open niya an lid. So dirito niya makakaya kung may damage sa imo corpus callosum because nagkakamay din problem with by manual task. Katigam niya. Sige, continue.
pero sir nakaka-perform pa ya kumbaga usalat iya kamot na kuan.
Oo. Pero amo ito, kung duha na nga ni, by manual na, nakukuryan na iya. Because siyaan na relay from your left to right and to your right to left, vice versa. Diba? Specifically, di mo corpus callosum. Okay.
Okay. Lastly, an imo projection fibers. So amay nimo ascending and descending tracts. Para nimo sensory and motor fibers maka-connect ya to different parts of the cerebral hemisphere or hanimo ibang structures and cortex. The fibers that go down from into the cerebral cortex kay naagi ya to sa structure called your internal capsule. So iti mo internal capsule may tulo ka parts. Amay ito niya. Iti mo internal capsule. Tulo ka parts. We have the anterior limb, the geno, nga nanimo posterior limb. Hay mo anterior limb, may dakita tracts nga tinatawag nga frontopontine tract. It imo, kunin niya, one of your corticopontine tracts that come from the frontal lobe. Nakatuhiyahan, so nakikita ni diha frontal lobe, tapos nakatuhiya, napasiya imo, anterior limb, hit imo internal capsule, ngan, masynapsiya pontine nuclei of your pons, tapos from there, makatuya cerebellum as your ponto cerebellar tract, tapos makatuya red nucleus as your cerebellolubral tract. Tapos from there, animo red nucleus, fibers can either go up to the thalamus or down to your spinal cord as your rubrospinal tract. Next is the genu. Nganya. Ang genu gihap may nakita corticonuclear tract. So this corticonuclear tract goes from the primary motor cortex, tas masynapsia, with the cranial nuclei at the brainstem for voluntary muscles, control of your muscles, hanek ngan ha head. Makadiya, primary motor, tas maagihiya ha genu, hindi mo internal capsule, tas makalineya, ay mo brainstem. Next is your posterior limb. Ha posterior limb, awan may pinakadamo nga tracts nga naagi. So first kay nimo corticospinal tract. Na-originate hiya ha pyramidal cells it motor area, so pwede gapiya tawagon nga pyramidal motor tract. It descends down to the spinal cord to innervate ani mo skeletal muscles ngan kuan niya responsible for the voluntary muscle control. So additionally, the fibers that go from the thalamus to the cortex are called the thalamocortical tract. So ani mo fibers nga tikang thalamus kadihiya ha posterior limb tapos to the cortex. Tapos ang tracts that go from the temporal, parietal, nga nimo occipital is what we call the temporopontine tract, parietopontine tract, and occipitopontine tract. Balang kanina may frontopontine tract. Pero adi, naagi yaha posterior limb, hanimo internal capsule. Samot tiya. Next, an usa nga internal structure kay animo lateral ventricle.
Okay. Ventricles naman, let's talk about next slide, Ana Leila.
Ay, wait lang.
It-
Wait. Before ano ya, in case madisi kay bagat kailangan man ngayon yung premium na. Google Meet 10 minutes na daw lang ko. In case madisi nagsend akong link ka. Nga di join na lang adi. Kamo ha. Wala na ako. Okay, 10 minutes na lang. Sige, thank you.
Okay. A lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle, it is C-shaped cavities on each side of cerebral hemisphere. Tapos, the lateral ventricle communicates with the cavity of third ventricle through the interventricular foramen. Lateral ventricles, it consists of central part called the body and three extensions, the anterior horn, posterior horn, on the inferior horn. Tapos, let's go to third ventricle. Third ventricle naman, it communicates anteriorly with the lateral ventricles through the interventricular foramen. Interventricular foramen, nakita kami ito na may circle asya itiya. Tapos naman, the function of the third ventricle is to produce, secrete, and convey CSF. Tapos, pagka di naman ha fourth ventricle, it is a cavity of hindbrain connected to the third ventricle by a narrow cerebral aqueduct. Its function is to protect the human brain from trauma. Kumbaga, it helps cushion the brain para pag like maiguit brain, diriya dayon madadamage. Tapos, fourth ventricle runs the length of the spinal canal. Cerebral aqueduct naman, it is a narrow 15 mm conduit that allows for the CSF to flow between the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle. And next, pa.
Okay, so i-explain ko lahat it flow in. So lateral ventricles, amot yan mga cavities that are filled with CSF. First, mga nga dihiya ha imo, and may choroid plexus kasi ito diditim lateral ventricle. So it choroid plexus amot yat imo responsible for the secretion of your CSF. So from there, makanya masekretiyahin CSF, tas makadiha lateral ventricle, tas magiyahay imo cerebral aqueduct, an imo kuan intraventricular foramen of Monroe, tas nga diha imo third ventricle, tapos an imo cerebral aqueduct, tapos pakadinaha imo fourth ventricle. From there, kung animo CSF mga dahiya to the median and lateral apertures. Itong mga apertures, an imo lateral apertures is what you call the Luschka. Tapos an imo median aperture, it is what you call the foramen of Magendie. So, first maagyan na ya imo foramen of Magendie, tapos amo diniya. Tapos haimo Luschka na. As from there, ma-flow na nimo CSF to the subarachnoid space tapos to your arachnoid villi didi na para ma-circulate. Tas actually i-filter pa ito ya dida hemodiural sinuses. Tapos ito ma-circulate na nimo CSF. Next is the diencephalon.
First is the thalamus. Thalamus is not only responsible for relying sensory signals, but it is also responsible for motor signal and regulation of consciousness and alertness. Thalamus is the body's information relay station. Tanan na information from your body's senses, except han olfactory, ginpa-process ana hiya through han imo thalamus bago hiya i-send ha imo brain's cerebral cortex para ma-interpret na information. And the next is hypothalamus.
Ano eh?
May dapangain adto. Sige, next. Imo thalamus may da pa subthalamus. Subthalamus is situated between the thalamus and the tegmentum of the midbrain. Largest division is subthalamic nucleus. Subthalamic nucleus is involved with the integration of somatic motor function. Next. Epithalamus consists of habenular and nuclei and pineal gland. It acts as a connection between the limbic system and other parts of the brain. Habenular nuclei is a small group of neurons situated just medial to the posterior surface of the thalamus, and center of integration of olfactory, visceral, and somatic efferent pathways. When lesions are present in this area, regulation of visceral and neuroendocrine functions is affected. If the habenular is ablated, there is significant alterations in metabolism and in thermal and endocrine regulation. Next. Pineal gland is conical structure that is attached by the pineal stalk to the diencephalon. Their actions are mainly inhibitory and either directly inhibit the production of hormones or indirectly inhibit the secretion of the releasing factors by the hypothalamus. Melatonin and other substances are released into the blood or into the CSF or the third ventricle, where they are passed to the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland and inhibit the release of the gonadotropic hormone. And melatonin is most active during the darkness. It helps you para mag-sleep during the nighttime. So, if napapansin niyo, pag mga nalilip na kamong katurog, so pag nagsa-sunrise na, nagkukuri na gihap ka mo pag-sleep. It's because melatonin na diri as